Normality has resumed. Another win for Max Verstappen, but not in the state that he left us in before Miami. It was only a 0.7 gap to Lando Norris this weekend, coming across the finish line. I am back with Will and Ben to go through the Imola race weekend. Boys, how are we doing?
I'm good, actually. And one thing I'm really excited about to go through with today's podcast is how many times have I said on this, I don't mind Max winning just as long as there's something, it's been rewarded. And this weekend, absolute credit goes to Max Verstappen because he fought that car to get pole. No one saw that pole coming after the struggles they had in practice with the balance of the car. And then to win the race just by 7/10, that meant a lot to him as well. Finally, we actually saw a bit of emotion from him after the race as well, about how much that meant to him. And I can fully get behind races where he wins like that. You know, it may have taken 59 attempts, but 7/10, fair play to him. Round of applause to Max Verstappen because I think that was brilliant.
Yeah, as well. I'm not gonna lie. I may be the only one who's thinking it, but I thought the Grand Prix itself was very dull.
No, it was.
Until the last 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah.
Which, and don't get me wrong, you look at it and you think, oh, but it ended in this amazing way. Yeah, but most people would have clicked off by about lap 30 because of how dull it actually was. I mean, I don't know about you two, but I found myself just occasionally looking up every now and again off my phone. But I'm going to say it, as much as Imola is like a piece of history for F1, because of how wide the cars now are and how difficult it is to overtake, I don't know how long it can realistically stay on the calendar because of the racing, especially as there's only one DRS zone.
And they reduced that.
Yeah, which they reduced as well, and how narrow the circuit actually is. I just don't know how long it can realistically stay on the calendar because there isn't much good racing at all that really happens.
Daniel Ricciardo came out after and he said he spoke to a couple of other drivers and they said, yeah, this is pretty boring. And he said basically what you've just said. It's a historic track and everything, I'm sure we'll get onto everything Seb Vettel did with Senna beforehand 30 years on was amazing. But in terms of race day, yeah, it isn't great. And
especially as well, if we're looking at what F1 is now becoming, it's more modernized. They want it to be bigger, more and expand it. Having a race like that, where that must have been one of the only races like fewest overtakes ever. Like it was having a race like that is not gonna do well on the brand of the sport. You need something more entertaining. And I know we slated Vegas last year for they're only doing it because it's Vegas in the name. How entertaining was the actual race though?
No, it's true.
And like I said, Imola is a historic place. It's such a good track. It's so nice. The way it just flows
for a Saturday.
Yeah, the way it flows through the Italian countryside, it's just surrounded by the town. It's just so nice. But if we're thinking about the modern era of Formula One, you cannot have a race weekend where most of the overtakes are happening in the pit lane.
Do you see videos of the old W12 and the way, the certain corner where how fast it used to fly through, and then you watch it now, it's just it looks so slow.
Is that the Villeneuve chicane? Turns 5 and 6, I want to say 4 and 5.
I think it might be. Have you seen the video of the old AlphaTauri, the 2020 AlphaTauri, going for zooming around there, where they were doing testing in 2020? But even those cars were narrower and shorter, and you could have. But it doesn't. It was a very dull weekend until the last 5 laps, and I don't want the last 5 laps where you look at it and go, "Oh, we had a race for the win." I don't want that to overshadow.
But
how boring the race was.
You are correct. There wasn't anything, and
I know that's a really negative way to start the race weekend, but I just feel like I had to get it out there. Don't get me wrong, the last 5 laps, brilliant, loved everybody, but we need to talk about the earlier 58 that really killed it for me.
You are right, because the thing is if Max had just continued his lead, we would straight away be saying it was boring. I wouldn't have started with fair play to Max. I would have started with typical Max again. But I'm trying to think of the last time Max was leading a race where he had a big gap, and it just progressively got slower.
Well,
like there's actual if you go on like the F1 account, there's like the laps breakdown, and he was like 7 seconds behind with like 10 laps or something to go, and then at one point it's like, where did Norris get that, and where did Verstappen lose it? I know Verstappen didn't have much battery left, but mate, I said this last week, and Will, you didn't want to hear it from me and Ollie, but there could be a season back on our hands here.
You know what? I was thinking this through the race. Actually, I was thinking, Lando. This is why I put Lando to win in my predictions, and we'll get onto that later in the episode. Ben, I know you probably biting at the.
We will,
but that's why I put Lando to win in my predictions. I know we only said 2-3 weeks ago now, Will. Oh, Lando's never going to win a race, but that McLaren. I'm telling you, it's got something about it. It has got something about it. I think it really could challenge Red Bull now. I genuinely really do think it could. But, right, I know you two want to get on.
No, I know, Ollie. I know you. No, I know, Ollie, what you want to get onto, and you can. I promise you can. But I just also wanted to say, whilst we just mentioned McLaren there, and I know we'll jump back into F1, but Piastri this weekend had the upgrades that Norris had last week in Miami 2 weeks ago, and he didn't finish on the podium. So, do you therefore think? I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but in terms of Norris and Piastri, we've always known Norris is number one anyway. But do you think that Norris does deserve a little bit more respect?
You say that though, Piastri was flying. Piastri was absolutely flying. And like I said, I think it was more the fact that he couldn't get past Sainz because of the layout of the circuit.
Don't forget, he did actually get P2 in qualifying. He did out-qualify Norris. He just got the penalty.
I do think he was flying. Also, on the topic of Max winning, we'll get on to Ollie. I literally, before we started the pod, I saw this. Max's victories this season. So Bahrain, he won by 22 seconds.
Seen this, yeah.
In Saudi Arabia and China, both 13 seconds. Japan was 12. This weekend was 0.7. Now, that's a massive decrease, which is crazy.
Yeah. And the thing is, as well, one of those races will have a safety car. One of those races will have a safety car where it's cut it down as well. So
that could back Ollie's point, though, about whether we do have a season or not back on our hands because of how much the McLaren is actually flying.
I think we do. But in talking of seasons and whether or not there's a challenge, there is definitely a challenge in the Formula 2 season. Ollie, take it away for us.
After 2 months without having any feeder series action, I was surviving off of F1 and a little bit of IndyCar, which Indy 500 next weekend. I can't. I want to mention the Indy
format though. What a format that qualifying is.
I want to talk about the IndyCar a little bit towards the end of the episode. But Formula 2 is finally back, and my God, am I happy it is. It was absolutely phenomenal. If you didn't watch the TikToks, Trackside Pod F1, same on every other social platform. Give us a follow, like all the videos, add some comments, tell us what you think about our videos, good, bad, or whatever.
Tell us that apparently we're Drive to Survive fans and we haven't actually watched the sport.
Tell us Ben's hair's awful.
Yeah, well, it is. It is. That's why I had to put a hat on.
The Formula 2 weekend got underway on the Friday. In free practice, Paul Aron, again, topping one of the sessions, who's having a brilliant rookie season. Currently actually P2 in the standings after everything that happened this weekend, which is phenomenal because he wasn't really anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did look like he had that something special in Formula 3, but nothing like, whoa, okay, this kid's got it. But this season, he's took to the F2 car like a duck to water. He's been absolutely phenomenal all season. Got first in free practice. However, he couldn't replicate that in qualifying with Gabriel Bortoleto, the young McLaren Academy driver, taking pole position. But then we got into the races, and I quickly, just before we get onto the sprint of the Formula 2, I want to talk about the sprint of the Formula 3. You said that we didn't get any safety cars or virtual safety cars in the F1 race. Did you two see or hear how many safety cars were in the Formula 3, safety cars and virtual safety cars were in the Formula 3 sprint race?
Wasn't there 6?
In 19 laps, there was 6 safety cars / virtual safety cars. I think it was four actual safety cars and 2 virtual safety cars. It's mental. Like every single feeder series race is just something it's just bonkers. I always, whenever we come onto the podcast and I try and explain what the feeder series races are like, I always struggle to find the words to describe them because it is always so calamitous. Like there's everything going on. There's something going on pretty much every single lap. I mean, the feature race, don't get me wrong, the Formula 2 feature race wasn't very exciting. It was like the Formula 1 race, to be honest. It wasn't really much going on until the final few laps when all of a sudden it was just blown out of the water. But the Formula 2 sprint race at the start, I'm sure, did you two watch the Formula 2 sprint race?
I watched the highlights.
I've seen what happened.
Yeah.
The start, there was 5 or 6. I think there was 5 that I saw and 5 that I reported on.
Yeah.
That crashed out. 5 cars crashing going into turn 1. It looked like a bomb had just gone off at that first corner. And
it was crazy.
Ultimately, Aaron got away really well in the high tech. So did Cordeal. The high tech's looking really good this season. Cordeal wasn't really done that well in previous Formula 2 seasons, but this season he seems to be improving a bit, but it was let down in the feature race, because I'll get onto that in a minute. But the first ever Argentinian to finish on the podium of a Formula 2 race, Williams Academy driver Franco Colapinto, took the race win in the sprint race of Imola in Formula 2. So congratulations to him to becoming the first Argentinian to take that step in the series. So he looks quite good. I mean, he was in the Formula 3 last season with Bortoleto as well. I think he was the vice champion, so he came runner up to Bortoleto, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, very good drive from him. And my, oh my, it was a brilliant overtake. Final lap of the race, and he sends it down the outside of turn 1 to take the lead. And he held on to that lead. I mean, only a lap earlier, we saw Maloney take Cordeal's position on the final spot of the podium for P3. And then Colapinto repeated it on the final lap going into turn 1 to take first. So well done to Franco Colapinto for his first ever Formula 2 win and the first ever Argentinian driver to go on the Formula 2 podium. And then the feature race on Sunday, Red Bull Junior Isaac Hadjar won the race. And it was, again, as I said, it was very much like the F1 race where over the course of it, it wasn't very exciting, but the final 3 to 5 laps were really entertaining. Ollie Bierman got brilliantly off the line, only to then stall it twice in the pits, which was absolutely heartbreaking. He got away brilliantly. He stalled it, got his engine going again, stalled it again, dropped him right to the back of the grid, and it was pretty much his race was done from there. And that was on lap 7 or 8, I think it was, of the 35-lap race, which was heartbreaking, really, seeing him do that. Go on, William.
Ollie, did you see as well, were you about to mention the calamity of pit stops as well that happened in the F2? Oh my God, we bang on about Kick Sauber's ability to change tyres. It stems all the way down to Formula 2, doesn't it?
It was. Cool. So I don't even know what happened. So it was Cordeal. So Cordeal was on the alternate strategy. So we went so most of the drivers went from soft tyres to hard tyres. So they pitted on, the soft runners pitted on about lap 7 or 8 and then ran the rest of the race on the hard tyres. Cordeal done the opposite, ran until about 5 or 6 laps to go, came in for his pit stop, and as they were putting the right rear on, before it was fully on and the wheel nut was locked in, he started spinning his rear tyres, meaning the wheel nut didn't lock properly, and we get the ridiculous view of a massive Formula 2 rear tyre bouncing down the pit lane. And I mean, it caused chaos, but I don't think they really showed it that much. But it also happened to Pepe Marti literally 2 seconds later.
Yeah, because Marty's then trying to avoid the tyre that's in the pit lane, and his falls off at the same time as well.
So we were left with 2 cars in the pit lane with tyres off the cars, and unfortunately, because Cordeal was running a really good race as well, he'd run pretty much first from lap 7 from when all the front runners, or when all the soft runners pitted at the start of the race. He'd ran in first for that whole time, and he'd actually extended to a gap of 7 seconds ahead, which could actually put him in a very good place out in the front of the race, and probably could have put him in good point positions. But yeah, he just had a lot of unfortunate, a lot of unfortune in his tyre coming off. So too eager to get out of the pits, and his tyre came off. But yeah, Isaac Hadjar, another race win for him. That's now 2 race wins in a row feature race wins in a row for him in Formula 2, putting him third in the championship behind Zay Maloney, who's still in the lead on 68, Paul Aaron in second on 63, and Hadjar in third on 59. So, I mean, you look at the F1 championship and it's a 50-something point gap. And in the Formula 2 championship, there's a 9-point gap between the top 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're not watching F2 already, please go and watch it. But to finish this section off, my driver of the day has to go to Joshua Dirksen, the first Paraguayan driver to not only get a point in Formula 2, but also get a podium in Formula 2. He finished third in the feature race and also gave AIX Racing their first point and podium as well, I believe, in the series. Wow. So congratulations to him. But I think what's even more surprising, and I don't think a lot of people have spoken about, is Josh Dirksen done the same as Antonelli. He was in, I don't know if he was in Freca or whether he was in a different series, but he skipped Formula 3 to go straight into Formula 2 and has done what people are asking Antonelli to do before Antonelli's even done it.
Ooh.
So that's what I was going to ask. I have 2 questions for you. One, how did Antonelli get on this weekend? That's my first question.
He qualified P4, I believe.
That was reinstated, wasn't it? Because it initially was taken away from him.
Yes, he qualified.
Same with Bierman.
Yeah, so Antonelli qualified P4. In the sprint race, he finished. Where did he finish? 10th. So not great because he would have started 6th. Yeah. And in the race, he finished 4th. So not a bad finish to the feature race. Obviously, he started 4th.
You know what Antonelli reminds me of? He reminds me of me trying to get my pen license. I was always better with a pen, but I couldn't prove it until I'd been good with a pencil. He seems to be good in F1 testing, but he's not actually any good in an F2 car.
Where's that clip like analogy?
That is a great comparison. That is a great comparison. Whenever I used a pen, I was really good, but I had to prove I was good with a pencil before I could get a pen, and I was rubbish with a pencil. He has shown really good timings in an F1 car in testing, but in F2, he's not really cutting it.
No, I mean, with all the hype around him...
That's an unbelievable analogy. That is an unbelievable analogy.
With all the hype around him, I am really struggling to see why they're pinning him to being in an F1 car. Don't get me wrong, all his accolades last season, obviously winning 5 championships in one calendar year is just ridiculous and probably won't be repeated for a very long time, if ever again. But if he carries on the way he is in Formula 2 currently, there's no chance of him getting to F1 anytime soon. Obviously, it's his first year and there's only been 4 rounds, but with all the hype, you would like to think that he'll be doing a bit better. But saying that, the Prema car looks absolutely awful. I don't know why, but this season Prema have just not got it right whatsoever. I mean, Campos seem to have hit the nail on the head and they're absolutely flying with Pepe Marti and Isaac Hadjar, and High-Tech do as well, as I said, with Amory Cordial and Paul Aron. But Prema this year just don't seem to be anywhere, unfortunately.
Well, Ollie, this is what my second question was going to be. Obviously, do you think the rule changes and the car shape changing to feet look more like an F1 car now? Has that really spiced up F2 a bit more, made it a bit more entertaining?
I think so. There are some obviously over the weekend, the racing in general, the feeder series racing was very much like the F1. There was only really one overtaking opportunity, and it was going into turn 1. So
look back at the whole season, though, more than just this weekend.
Oh, the whole season's been phenomenal. The whole season.
Would you say that's down to the rule regulation changes and the car design changing?
I don't know, because I think Formula 2 in general is just such an incredible series. It is so entertaining to watch because with Formula One, I kind of watch it after watching Formula Two. And IndyCar as well, especially. I kind of watch it and think the drivers in F1 drive more to protect their cars and actually show their ability because of how flimsy the F1 cars are. One tiny bit of damage and you lose. We saw Max in Miami. Max obviously downplayed it and said, "Oh, I lost that bit. It didn't really factor in anything." But the amount of time he lost, it must have impacted him in some way or another. So, I watch F1 kind of always thinking maybe the drivers are not driving to the max because they're risking damaging the car, losing time, losing positions. But in the feeder series and in IndyCar, it's like they go side to side through pretty much any corner that they want. It's absolutely phenomenal. Like, if the opportunity's there, they go for the opportunity to make a move. They don't hold back and think, okay, I need to be strategic about this. They go, you know what? There's a space there. I want it. It's mine. And it's brilliant to watch.
That's what we want really in F1 as well.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Ollie. It's good to
have
it back.
I'm so glad to have it back. Honestly, those 2 months about it were painful. But yes, I'll be back again to review Monaco. I won't be able to do it on Sunday because I'm working all day, unfortunately. So that's going to be a bit annoying. But I'll be able to watch it on Saturday. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
So moving into the Formula One, I think there are still quite a few things to talk about. Despite the race obviously falling quite flat until the end, there are specifics to talk about. Let's start with Max Verstappen. Absolutely an unbelievable weekend for him, because if we take it back to practice, like I mentioned earlier on, oh my word, he was really struggling and he was getting really angry on the radio. Across all the practice sessions, he kept going off, kept going wide, running across the gravel, really struggling with his balance. Will, like, when you see this, you must be thinking, after Miami, you must be thinking, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, especially basically from the first few timing laps set in FP1, everyone wrote Max off realistically.
Yeah.
And this is why when we said, like, he is moving into the top 5, he is starting to become that guy that even if it is against him, you can't write him off. And that is the sign of an F1 great. Like, no matter what's against them, you just can't write them off. No, if it's the car, the conditions, just the strategy, anything. And yeah, like you said, from FP1, it seemed like, although on Friday, just constantly, the whole talking point was Max is in trouble here. Something needs to change into FP3, otherwise he could be on ropes. It didn't change his FP3. Moving into quali, everyone was going, well, Ferrari have got to bat this out the park now. All they've got to do is hold off the McLarens. And from Ferrari, I'd say it was a pretty disappointing weekend, and considering the circumstances where they found themselves, basically being, one, the home favourites, two, also the ball in their court. But like you said, an unbelievable weekend for Max, just proving why he is the machine that he is. And it's just incredible.
I've got a stat for you here. Verstappen's career win percentage is now 30.7%, surpassing Lewis Hamilton's 30.4% for the best on the current grid.
Wow.
So there you have it. 50. You know, and I think I've said it all along, and I mentioned it at the start. If he went and won the next 10 races in a row, all by 7/10, I promise you, I'm going to be sat by the end going, oh, okay, it's still annoying, but I'm going to be like, we are witnessing one of the best things. Now, I should already be saying that, but I still can't because of how the races are won, in my opinion, too easily. But something like yesterday, I can fully get behind and be like, and actually, right, bearing in mind, this is me. This is coming from me. And we all know my opinions on Formula One and where certain drivers rank in certain orders. But that actually gives me more respect to Max Verstappen. That actually makes me go, do you know what? Fair play, mate. That is an unbelievable drive, and I can fully get, because at the end of the day, I'm a massive fan of motorsport and of Formula One. It doesn't matter who you are. If you can pull a race like that out of the bag where you can fight someone off, I think it's brilliant, especially in this day and age with DRS, where it feels as though as soon as you get DRS, you just overtake, as long as you're not in a train. I can fully get behind that. So genuinely, all respect to Max Verstappen. And I mean that.
Like you said as well, Ben, you'll be sat there thinking, oh, well, Max has won again, but you'll be sat at the end of your bed. You won't be sat laying down. You won't be laying down in bed. It's so true. And there's more, I think, Ollie, I think you're the same as well. There's more element of oh, what could happen next? Or what's going to happen next lap? Oh,
I agree.
Is he within DRS? Can he catch him here? Is he going to make that lunge? There's just that element a bit more to it, which really could make this season more interesting.
I think one major thing to point out as well is the fact of I mean, we've said this literally ever since we started doing this podcast. We've said we don't care if we care if Max wins, obviously, but we'd prefer if it was by 2 seconds or 3 seconds rather than 7 or 15 or 20. And I mean, when it got to 3 laps to go and it was 5 laps to go, I think it was, and it was still 3 seconds, I was still a bit like, I was sitting there, I was like, you know what, Lando could have got him. Give him 5 more laps. I think I said to my brother at the end, I said to him, I reckon if you gave Lando 3 more laps, it could have been a really tight battle. But the age-old saying in F1, it's one thing to catch up to a driver, it's another thing to overtake them. And I think that really would have proved, 1, where Lando is, also 2, where Max is. Because even though he made those mistakes, and I mean, we're all kind of saying he made those mistakes and he's had a brilliant performance, on the radio, he seemed to get a bit more unsettled than usual. Like, he's made mistakes in previous races, like the Bullard incident in Miami. He went over the Bullard and was kind of like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter too much. When he was making the mistakes this weekend, he seemed a bit more anxious on his radio than before. Whereas it seems like he knows that McLaren has a lot of pace.
Well, what I was going to ask you actually, from Lando's perspective, another unbelievable drive. You know, he's good at Imola anyway. That's 3 podiums in a row for him at Imola, 2 P3s and now a P2. Also, as well, it's 3 races in a row where it's been Verstappen and Norris as the 1-2. So Norris is really showing, you know, now he deserves to be up the front. But I want to count you down from lap 43, 60, the last 21 laps, right? And the gap. From lap 43 all the way to lap 51, so 9 laps, constantly he gets it down from 7.5 to 4.5. So that's 3 seconds that he's found in those laps. The next lap, he's then a 10th slower, but then after that, he's 5/10 quicker. So that might just be a case of, you know, battery saving the tyres, something along those lines. When we get down, though, to the core, of course, he ends up not at 7/10, so he has still improved. But when we get to sort of around about lap 59, once again, he goes from 1.7 seconds behind the lap before to 1.8, and then after that cuts it down to 1.4. My question to you boys is, do you think that is a simple case of saving battery, saving tyres, or do you think that's a mistake that he's made, 2 on the edge? Because there was the live clip where he very, very nearly touched the gravel. Do you think that there was almost too much desperation there?
I think, well, this is what we could ask as well. Do you think he left it too late or he went too early?
See, I've got something. I think I have an explanation for it. This is just me kind of speaking my view on it. But as soon as Leclerc made that mistake behind him, that was kind of his ticket to go, right, you know what, I can go and check Max now. Because all that, I was so adamant on Leclerc's going to get him in the next 2 laps. As soon as he saw Leclerc and his mirrors struggle to get over the Variante Outer, I want to say it is, the chicane.
Sauce. Wow, Ollie.
They say the corners so much. Also, that means tall variant, I think.
Tall variant?
Might as well just call it Ben Parker then.
But yeah, as soon as he saw, I think as soon as Lando saw Leclerc go over the grass on that chicane, I think he saw it as like, right, I can go now. I have the ticket to go and chase Max and potentially get a win. But if it happens,
you say that, Ollie,
earlier.
You do say that, and I agree. But if you watch the cool down room, he didn't know it was Leclerc. He thought it was Max.
Was it that?
He said,
was it when Lewis went off that he thought it was Max?
Oh yeah. Oh no, you actually could be right. It was one of them. Both of them were saying they hoping it was Max.
Yeah.
You might be the Lewis one actually. You might, yeah.
No,
it might actually be.
It was. I think it was. I think in the call. I think I've seen a breakdown of it. I think Lando goes, "Oh, I thought it was you," and then Max went, "No, you were hoping it was me." And it's like it probably was.
Yeah. I know. The thing is, I'm really interested to see. Obviously, Max and Lando's friendship, as we know, is good. And now Lando won. Everyone wanted him to win anyway, so Max wasn't really too bothered about that first win. If Lando can genuinely keep it up, I think there could be a bit of friction that starts to come there. But also as well, I watched Lando's interview back at MTC where he goes after the race, he comes back thanking everyone at the factory. And he says to the camera, he says, well, yeah, me and Max, we're not best friends. We just get along in the world of F1. And I thought, I don't know if that's true or not. Like, it's still quite like out there to say, like, oh, yeah, well, we're not best friends. Like, well, you spend a lot of time together. You fly to the races together. Like, you've got to be some form of a better than just a normal friend, you know.
Between Max on 161, there is a 50-point gap between Norris in fourth on 101. 60-point gap, sorry. Do we honestly think that could be closed up?
Well, honestly, anything's possible. Genuinely, anything's possible. In my opinion, this is still Max's championship to lose, obviously, right? Obviously, that's the case. And I do still think he will win it. But I don't think he will be going on these 10 race winning sprees. I really don't. I think McLaren and Ferrari are there to challenge. Mercedes are totally out of the picture, right? They're totally out of the picture. They're not even going to find like something special in the second half. They're done. Do you know what? At this rate, I don't even see Mercedes getting on the podium. I'm imagining it will happen. There'll be one crazy race somewhere where top three will go out, and it's like, okay, now George Russell finds a P3 or something. But I think those top three teams, and also as well, what I'm really excited about, of course, it's all about the Drivers' Championship, but my sort of, it's not even mid-season, but my sort of new prediction that I'm bringing into the fort here is that Red Bull aren't going to win the Constructors.
No, not if both McLarens are performing that well and Perez is bottling.
Yeah, but even Ferrari, I mean, we saw how good Sainz started, and obviously you give Leclerc a lot of slack, and fairly so in the sense of when it comes to maybe, you know, winning the races. I've said before, he never challenged Max in that 2022 season enough for me, but he's been so consistent on race day, top four every single time. P3 yesterday, first Italian to be on the podium in Imola since 2006, Schumacher. And I think the Ferrari of old would have been like, oh yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. But he turned around and went, I'm not satisfied because I didn't win.
Do you mean
so?
Ferrari
he has got that edge. Pardon?
Do you mean first Ferrari driver to be on the podium? You said first Italian. Schumacher's not Italian.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, you said Italian.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Italian. I do obviously. No, he's Monegasque. No, of course. It's his home race this week. No, I meant first Ferrari driver since 2006 at Imola to since Schumacher on the podium. So, you know, I think for him especially, I think he's reinserting his I am number one at Ferrari, like, don't forget about it. Even though he was anyway, as in I'm still the better driver across the two garages. Which is a shame because the way Sainz started, I really wanted him to keep that up. He even went into the press conference this weekend. He sounded a little bit worried about his future, as if to say at the start it would all kind of be, I'm not talking about it because it will get to a point, and it sounded like this time he was kind of like, mate, there is literally nothing to report because nothing's happening, which would be terrible for him.
Still no seat, and there's also still no like inkling of that, like their seat that could become available. We always said that there's a possibility of the Red Bull becoming available, either Perez or Max, depending on what happens. But it would be such a shame if Sainz drops out of F1 because he is a talent.
It would only be for a year, but I still feel as though a year is too much.
He'd be missed on the grid. He would be missed not only for his driving ability, but also his personality. He's a really likable driver to have on the grid and in around the paddock.
His defending for me is up there with one of the best.
He's not one of those drivers as well that was in the spotlight most weeks for like any controversy or any big things. Like, when was the last time you could name something Carlos Sainz done that caused him a lot of backlash? You can't.
Literally Miami when he went into Piastri.
All right, good point. But but do you know what I mean? Like, he's not.
He's not a Kevin Magnussen.
No,
or a George Russell.
Yeah, It'd be such a shame if he dropped out of F1 because of who he is.
Anyway, well, I want to give you, on the sort of subject of Ferrari-ish, I want to give you a question, right? See if you can answer this. So, Verstappen moved up in the podium rankings to 6th on the all-time podium list, surpassing Kimi Räikkönen. Can you tell me how many podiums he's now on?
Is it 113?
We're all saying 113. Ollie, what are you saying?
I'm going to go with 106.
104. That's a very good guess, Ollie. That's a very good guess.
Damn.
I like the fact you've gone under as well. It's very easy to go over.
I was debating whether to go in the 130s, and then I was debating to go in the 90s. So I think I've had a good little punt there.
Third driver of the day for Lando Norris as well. But just briefly, while we're still talking about the top three, if I remember, so how many races have we had now? 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's won 3. I think Leclerc's won 2. I think Perez may have won 1. I don't know who would have won the other one.
Shall I try?
I'm not too sure.
Find.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. But listen, Lando is a firm fan's favourite, and the performances that he is putting in, I am really genuinely intrigued to see where McLaren can go this year. And I think, honestly, I'm not even joking, boys. I know they're currently 3rd, but I really can potentially see him winning the Constructors. I can.
Especially as well because Oscar is so good. Oscar, like I said, I do think that Oscar was... We can't take it away. Even though Oscar finished P4, you cannot take away the pace he actually had. And I do think it comes down to, as well, like I said, the track layout and how easy it is to overtake. And I'm going to say this now, if we were possibly on a different track that was wider, Lando, and had more DRS zones, Lando probably would have got Max.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think if Piastri had started P2, he would have, I guess, 2-part, would he have won? Or if not, would he have held Lando behind?
Honestly, it depends what the team orders would have been. If they would have turned around and said you could fight, then they would have fought. If they'd have said move, he would have moved because he is the second driver. So I get what you're trying to say, but at the same time, you don't know because it would have depended on the team orders and what they.
Do you think, though, if Piastri was in Norris's boots with those last 20 laps, do you think that he would have finished 7/10 behind? Do you think he would have finished further behind, or do you think he would have won?
I think he would have finished behind, just because Norris's tyre management was so excellent to the point where he could push on at the end. I don't think Oscar has that level of ability yet when it comes to tyre management, because we've got it's all good driving fast, but remember in F1, and Ollie, this is going back to F2 as well. The reason why you don't see the sort of full on I'm going into this corner is because everyone knows in F1 consistency is key. You could win a race one week and then not even finish for the next 3, and you'll lose your seat. It's simple as. And that's where I think that's why Lando had the better chance than Oscar. But Oscar's race pace, don't get me wrong, this weekend was phenomenal for great. It was really good, but yeah, I don't think he would have had the opportunity Lando had because of Lando's ability to tyre save, because of that experience.
Still, though, considering that the top 5 didn't move from the starting grid, apart from the Piastri and Sainz thing, the fact that he did finally manage to get past Sainz, I can't remember if it was through the pit stops though, if it was on track. Yeah, but okay then. So then, in that case, do you think if it weren't for strategy, do you think he genuinely would have been sat behind Sainz for 63 laps?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But he would have been there for a long time. But also, can we talk about Ferrari again and their strategy? What were they doing? They had the perfect opportunity to cover McLaren off, and they just bottled it. Like they could have left Sainz out for so much longer than what they did, but reacted off of Piastri pitting for no reason. And you just think, why? Why?
Yeah, it kind of. I think with Ferrari this year, very rare we've actually spoken about them having poor strategies like we have in the past, where it seemed to be every other race weekend. I think Fred Vasseur has come straight in. He's done a great job. I saw the Tifosi actually chanting his name. I never heard them chanting Bonotto's name or anyone. I haven't for a while. So Fred Vasseur is doing a great job. I think that definitely helps with the attraction of people he's bringing in. Obviously, one being Lewis Hamilton, but even others like, I don't know if you've seen D'Ambrosio and someone else is leaving Mercedes and they're going to Ferrari next year following Lewis.
Have you guys seen the edited team photo of Mercedes next year?
Yeah, it's just George and Toto.
It's like a second car.
Yeah. Also, as well, I need to change something. I need to come in and change something. I'm a true believer in sticking to what I believe, but as much as I am good at maybe predictions, I have got two things wrong so far this year, and I have to come out and be honest. The first one was I thought Alonso was going to call it quits, and then he proved me wrong. He signed a new deal. Even though I've not been proved wrong on this one yet.
Weekend from him.
Yeah, really bad.
Appalling weekend.
Really bad. But even though nothing's been confirmed yet, obviously I said 2 weeks ago that I believed that Newey, that would be it for him. And I genuinely did believe that. But the more and more since then, to be fair, the more it's come out, and even from the horse's mouth himself, Adrian Newey has come out and said that he really wants to get back in. There is no doubt in my mind that he is going to be at a team next year. But whether that is Ferrari or not, it could easily be McLaren. I'm pretty sure his agent and former race driver and team owner, don't do this to me, Ben. Oh, and he used to work, Eddie Jordan. He, I think, accidentally let slip that like there had been talks with McLaren, and he tried covering himself up in like an interview he did. So I wouldn't count McLaren out, but yes, Ferrari. I think Newey, Ferrari.
Can I just ask you both a question? At this moment in time, are McLaren the most lucrative looking deal on the grid for anyone trying to get into a team?
No. But they are 100. But they are more lucrative than Red Bull. But for me, it's Ferrari. It's Ferrari.
If you're Adrian Newey looking at all three of them, Ferrari at the top, and then it all depends on whether Max goes to Mercedes. If Max goes to Mercedes, for me, I think Mercedes jump above McLaren in his option, because he gets to work with Maxi and he knows what Max likes.
No, I don't think so.
And then it's McLaren. Now, that's just me personally. If you two think that's the other way around, fair enough. But I do think it's still Ferrari at the top because you've got Leclerc and you've got Lewis Hamilton along with Fred Vasseur. It's the dream team.
I don't think, doesn't matter who takes his Lewis' seat at Mercedes, I don't think Mercedes is a lucrative deal for anyone now. I think they have I think 2022, when they had the bad season coming off of all their glory, still, it's Mercedes, guys. Like, after last year, well, they're clearly on the down, but look, it's still Mercedes. This year, forget the past. We don't live in the past. We live in the present and going into the future. Mercedes is not the Mercedes of old. I don't really see... I don't see Mercedes falling into like a Williams where they go from the very top to the very bottom. I don't see that at all. But to the point where, like I said earlier, I don't even see Mercedes getting on the podium this year. I know Lewis had the great sprint race in China, but I honestly, and I feel as well there's slowly starting to cause a little bit of friction. Have you seen what happened between Russell and Hamilton this weekend? They didn't. George Russell came out and said, "I'm not going to sulk over a sixth place," but they didn't. Obviously, they weren't going to invert the cars because Russell was a whole 10 seconds behind Lewis, but they let Lewis go through, and obviously George wasn't too happy about that. Toto then comes out and goes, well, it doesn't matter because Lewis would have got him anyway. Basically saying it doesn't matter because Lewis is a better driver than George anyway. And it's like, I'm thinking, Toto, like, obviously Lewis is your star golden boy, but George is your boy for the future. Like, you can't call him out in public like that.
It's the same as what I said before. It's George thinking he's higher up in the ranking than Hamilton because of his ego.
Lewis is in vibes mode, though. He really is.
Oh, yeah. George needs to still... Lewis leaves.
With the beam,
a pecking order.
Have you seen it, Will? Have you seen him holding like their Netflix Drive to Survive, like the beam? They like hold the mic over everyone's head.
What's it called? The boom mic?
Yeah, the boom mic. Have you seen it? He literally dangles it in front of Albon's head, and Albon obviously thinks it's one of the professionals, and he then turns and sees it's Lewis, and they just all start laughing.
Oh my god! No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
when would you have seen Championship Lewis ever do anything like that?
Never.
He didn't even do like media interviews, let alone funny stuff like that.
He's there for a paycheck this year, and then he's dipping really.
Well, the reality is, mate, is if he hadn't signed that contract the other year and he didn't have that thing in his contract, the clause that said he had to stay this year, he'd already be gone. Yeah. He'd already be at Ferrari right now. He has to be there. He has to see out this year. But it is interesting. He came out and said that he is still in talks for the development of the Mercedes car next year, and still trying to give him advice, saying, no, you should do this, you should do that. I think that's just a credit to him. Like, he's still trying to give off his like 17, 18 years experience in Formula One to, Mercedes, whereas they could very easily cut him out, like Red Bull have done to Newey. Red Bull have cut Newey out of the picture. They came out and said that they've cut Newey out of the picture. He's not invited to any of like the kind of race debriefs anymore. He's not invited. They've cut him out completely. But Mercedes haven't done that with Lewis.
Red Bull will struggle next year if they don't even have that next year, that he can't even work on the car. Then they are going to struggle.
I think ever so slowly. I mean, it's not going to be this year. It could potentially be next year, but 2026, I think we'll see the true effects of everything that happened at the start of the season. I think we'll see the true effects of what's happened at Red Bull. I really do, because I don't think anyone will want to be associated with the name Red Bull in Formula One.
Can I just ask you though, boys? Like, I know it's only been 2 races, and we could very easily fall straight back into the palm of Max's hands where he goes off and wins everything. But the way that Formula One, the way that Norris could win a race on merit in Miami, and then fair play to Max, he come out and topped the timings and won the race, but issues that he had this weekend, do you still genuinely believe to tell me that Lewis Hamilton won't win a race next year at Ferrari?
If Newey goes to McLaren, no.
Really?
Yeah.
So the Ferrari of this year that has no Newey input whatsoever, you don't think, and obviously Sainz has already won a race, but yes, Max DNF'd. You don't think the Ferrari of this year can even win a race?
I feel like it's
too early on in the season to say. I know we're already a third of the way through.
I don't know.
I know we're already a third of the way through, but that's the thing. This is the pleasure that we've got of talking about it this year. Last year, we didn't have the chance to even consider, is anyone else going to win? No, we didn't.
But we didn't think we would this year either.
No, we didn't. At the start, we didn't. But now, the past 2 races, and obviously Australia as well, it makes you think, is there maybe something bubbling up? I think there is.
Well,
I think McLaren... I think one thing that is just totally remarkable to me is the fact of, you look back, 5 years ago when Lando first joined McLaren, and they were, you look back 8 years ago when Alonso was saying GP2 engine about their car.
McLaren Honda, yeah.
You go back 8 years ago, you look at that. You go back 5 years ago and look when Lando started, they didn't have any sponsors whatsoever on the car. It was literally just an orange and blue car. No sponsor whatsoever. They were pretty much at the back of the field most of the time. And you look to now where they're competing at the front. They've got possibly one of the best driver partnerships on the grid. And their car is looking like a rocket ship with the potential of Adrian Newey coming into the fold. McLaren, I genuinely think McLaren have all the resources and all the people in their team that they need to compete for a world championship. Whether that
how much appreciation do you think like Zach Brown deserves, and Andrea Stella, but mainly Zach Brown? How much do you think like that they deserve? I mean, they've turned the team right upside down.
I mean, you look at McLaren when Zach Brown came in, and they were god-awful. They were god-awful. But he's just... I think I love whenever I see Zach Brown's face on TV, especially when McLaren do well, because whenever you just hear that American roar of...
yeah.
Like when Danny Rick won in Monza... The roar that he let out for that race was just phenomenal. He's
and
so
like whenever
about the team, it's so nice to see.
whenever he goes to give someone a hug now, like all the drivers or people, they go, please don't break my ribs, because they know that he's going to proper like grab them up and be like, because of how much it means. And again, like that's all we want in Formula One. We want it to mean something to someone. And so when Max won this weekend and he came over the radio and I was half expecting GP, well done, mate. I go, yeah, that was simply lovely. No, he was like, come on. Like he really had to work for it. And he gets out the car and he did like the iRacing pose, because we should talk about that as well with Max. He won 2 races in the same weekend.
Mental.
He won the 24-hour Nuremberg ring with his team. I can't remember what the team's called, but he did his stint overnight, and then he's gone straight in, won Imola, and then he did the pose.
Stint either. It's a 2-hour stint. It's in the middle of the night. It's a 2-hour stint. It's crazy. It's
unbelievable.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable. So, listen, I don't want to give him too much praise, but I genuinely have to say well done to Max Verstappen. And in a weird way, I always say to myself, like, obviously, I want to work in F1 so badly. And I'm like, well, I could never work with it if Lewis is still there, because obviously we know how much, I love him. The bias would be there, clearly. But with Max, it's like I always wondered how am I ever going to appreciate what he does? But days like, yes, I can. Days like when he got that Sector 3 in Monaco out of nowhere, I can. When I see things like that, I can respect him, because that is a driver at the elite level producing outstanding performances, and that I can fully get behind, because we all want to watch the best. It doesn't matter what sport it is. You want to watch Wimbledon final, you want to watch Federer v Nadal, right? When you watch Premier League, you want to watch City, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, like whatever the big game. You want to watch the El Clasico, right? You want to watch these big moments in sport, right? I want to watch Verstappen and another top driver racing to the line, and if I get that, I don't care who comes out on top. Perez Alonso in Sao Paulo last year, I don't care if Perez would have nicked Alonso, but just seeing 2 people fight for a podium, it means a lot. So I can fully get behind it. So absolutely well done, Max Verstappen. Brilliant race weekend. We've sort of mentioned the top 3. I want to sort of maybe dive down a little bit into the grid. So we mentioned Perez and how bad a weekend he had. Obviously qualifying P11, not getting into Q3, only actually making it up to P8 as well.
You're going to talk about F3 as well?
What, where he went off?
Yeah, obviously binned it into the wall literally 5 minutes before FP3 finished? Just binned it into the wall. He jumped over that chicane. By the way, going back to that chicane, the Variante Alta or whatever it was that it was called, how bad is that sausage curb that's there? Literally, the whole weekend, all it was just seeing cars mid-air.
Cars flying.
That curb. It's like,
reminds me
good.
Reminds me of the old Singapore layout where they used to literally just
straight
into the wall.
Oh, the Singapore sling. Oh,
no. Wasn't it a left, a right, and a left all within the space of 2 meters?
Yeah,
left, left, jump into the wall. Yeah. That was some turn though. That was some turn. Also, by the way, I might be severely wrong here, because obviously I love my stats, but mainly sort of only really F1. You are going to Le Mans, both of you, correct? Is Sebastian Buemi a Le Mans driver?
Toyota number 7, yeah.
Oh, he is he? Because I heard them mentioning him on comms this weekend. I think he was doing a bit of testing or a bit of data or something for someone. I can't remember. I thought, what a throwback that is. Sebastian Buemi, Toro Rosso driver. Apparently he's unbelievable in other race formats. And I was like, it just makes you think drivers that were kind of nothing in F1, but what they can go and do in other sports,
I think
other categories.
5 or 6 Le Mans. He's got 5 or 6 Le Mans victories. He also won the WEC last year and the year before that. I think he's won the WEC quite a lot, because there was a year where WEC went through basically what F1 went through, where you just had Toyota basically being the Mercedes of 2014 to 2018. Just them, really.
How's Mick Schumacher getting on in body endurance?
He's doing okay for Alpine. He just can't really adapt to the car. And changing of scenario, moving from multi-class racing to single-class racing, he is struggling with it. And I am going to be really interested to see how he deals with, because what they've been doing only so far is they've only been doing the prototypes and the GT3s. Obviously, you move to Le Mans, you've got the prototypes, you've got the privateer prototypes, the LMP2 category, and then you have the GT3s as well. It is going to be really interesting, because I think we've got about I think it's about 80 runners for this year's Le Mans. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's one of the most in history as well. It's crazy. Let me have a look. If you guys carry on talking, I will have a look at Sebastian.
Well, yeah, I was kind of just looking towards sort of the ending of the points. Obviously, Will won't want to hear this, but Lance Stroll, P13, but getting into P9, and considering the weekend Alonso had, you've got to give him credit where credit's due.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Stroll was by far the better driver than Alonso.
150th race weekend as well. I did see something that made me laugh, and we can say this because we're not on a proper broadcast, but I did see something that said Lance Stroll's 150th race start, and someone just commented underneath, yeah, and hopefully the last.
Wow. So, Sebastian, I was right. I think I said he's won the WEC 4 times, which is quite impressive. But at the same time, 3 of those, 2 or 3 of them were literally when it was just Toyota, and some privateers. And he's won Le Mans 4 times as of now. But he also won the 6 hours of Bathurst, I think is what it's called. Toyota won something this season already. Oh no, sorry, they won Imola. Toyota won Imola just literally 2 weekends ago. Sebastian Buemi won Imola. I forgot.
Shout out Sebastian Buemi, man. I love hearing like old names of when I was growing up watching it. Like when I was doing that driver thing the other day, like driver grid, and I saw Kobayashi, I thought, what a throwback! What a throwback! Even like, gone.
I'm going to tell you Giovinazzi's one.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I know Giovinazzi is good for Ferrari. He won Le Mans last year, didn't he?
He did win Le Mans last year. You are correct.
Oh yeah. Talking of the subject of past drivers, so I obviously mentioned Paul Aron having a fantastic season in Formula 2 earlier. In that 2-month break that we had for Formula 2, there was actually the Formula E that was going on, which Paul Aron actually competed in along with let me just have a look because I just had it.
What's Charles Peake up to these days? Remember when he used to drive for Charles Peake? Remember he did drive for Mauritius, didn't he, or something?
God, now you're testing my knowledge. I'm
PIC. Do you not remember Charles Peake?
No.
Wow, I'm gonna pull up Charles Peake right now and see what he's doing. What a driver he was! Remember when we had Mauritius and Caterham right at the very back of the grid? We had 12 teams. Yeah, Charles Peake. Here we are. Former F1 driver Charles Peake to take over Dam's team. What? What, is he an owner? As secured an agreement to take over Dam's racing team. Peake, who completed in F1 with Mauritius, is it Mauritius? Oh, not Mauritius, that's the country. Mauritius in 2012 and Caterham in 2013 before acting as Lotus F1 test driver in 2014, has acquired full control of the French racing team, taking over from co-team principals Oliver and Gregory Driot, who have been in charge since the passing of their father. Wow, so he's an owner of Dams.
Wow.
Oh, wow, that is incredible. Shout out Charles Peake, man.
Also,
Will.
There have been, to prove out how big the WEC actually is and how big Le Mans actually is, for anyone who doesn't know, because whenever I say Le Mans to motorsport fans, they don't really understand what they go, oh yeah, Le Mans, but they don't understand like the history of it and stuff like that. There have been 22 F1 drivers that have gone on, well, there's now 24 that have gone on to race in Le Mans. 5 of which have been F1 champions, which could potentially be 6 if Sebastian Vettel decides that's what he's going to do, because we still don't know, because he was flirting with Penske Porsche a little bit, but didn't actually bother. But some big names: Fangio, Jack Brabham, Mansell, Schumacher, Damon Hill, Villeneuve, obviously Alonso and Jenson Button, but there's Mario Andretti. There's been some big names that have gone on to do both of them, which shows how big it actually is.
Le Mans part of the Triple Crown, right?
Yeah, Indy 500.
Indy 500, Le Mans, and Monaco.
Yeah.
Oh, can we use this as a segue to talk about the Indy 500 quickly?
Yes, please do.
After I've talked about the Formula E drivers, so talking of old names in different series, Came fourth this weekend, Pascal Wehrlein.
Pascal Wehrlein, what throwback!
Jehan Daruvla, who was obviously Formula 2 last season and the season before. Taylor Barnard, who's currently Formula 2. Lucas Di Grassi.
But Nick De Vries is doing terrible, isn't he? He hasn't even scored a point.
He's not. He didn't. I don't think he even finished in this race.
He's won Formula E. And imagine that. Just picture this a minute. A guy who's won. Imagine Max Verstappen. He's won the World Championship, right? He's taken a year out. He's gone and done something else. Gone and done Le Mans, right? He's come back, right? And now he's Logan Sargent. Like, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Nick De Vries, his career has just fallen apart ever since AlphaTauri. Well, really, he won F2, he won Formula E, and now he can't even buy a point.
There's another driver, Jean-Eric Verne.
Jean-Eric Verne, yeah.
Lucas Di Grassi, as I said. Paul Aaron, as I said. Dan Ticktum, formerly of Formula 2.
Oh, he's the one no one likes, isn't he?
One, yeah.
He's the mouthy guy,
and probably the biggest name on there, Stoffel Van Dorn.
Stoffel Van Dorn.
So,
he weren't good for McLaren, but I know he's been good elsewhere.
Ben, mentioning Logan Sargent does lead into Williams this weekend, especially Alex Albon.
This is the thing. Obviously, I was kind of going through the timing. I was just going to mention Yuki because I think Yuki had a great weekend. You know, P7 in qualifying, which I don't even think he'll be happy with because he set a faster time in Q2. Someone even said, don't even count Yuki off being front row. Genuinely, that's how good he was. And you know that famous Ayrton Senna meme that goes round where it's like super quick music and it's like just Ayrton Senna whizzing it round. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that meme. Yeah. Someone said Yuki Tsunoda every time he breathes Imola air just because he's brilliant in Imola. Finished 10th. Another point for RB. Really good performance of him, I think. Do you know what? I'm actually going to give Yuki Tsunoda my driver of the week, by the way. My driver of the day. Yeah, I think he was brilliant. What's yours then, Will?
Isn't it obvious who it is?
Verstappen?
Yes, absolutely. How can you take away from him?
No, you are correct, because he's been brilliant, but I think better than a driver of the day is my credit to him. It means a lot more, you see. He'll be thinking that, thanks, Ben. So, you know, I have to give Yuki my driver of the weekend or whatever. But no, Max was very, very close second, if not tied for first. But yes, Williams, Logan Sargent, James Vowles has come out and been very strong. Again, another reason why I love him, come out and being honest. And he basically came out and said, look, Logan knows he's on a tightrope now, right? He knows that, but we are still going to do everything we can to work with him. We're not just throwing him out for lions. You know, we're not just saying, right, mate, you're not cutting it, you're out. Still going to help him and tell him everything he needs to do to keep the seat, but we are going to still be looking. We are actively looking for drivers. And as I put in the chat, I think that driver is going to be Valtteri Bottas. James, it's Valtteri. Because I'm saying to you now, right, he was seen in hospitality. James Vowles then put a picture or video up on his Instagram. Within 15 minutes, it was already liked by Bottas. Just putting a few things together. Third time lucky, I'm going to get a prediction right. And I'm saying Valtteri Bottas will be a Williams driver next year.
I think as well, it's been tough for Logan Sargent because the Miami incident wasn't his fault. He was doing quite well in Miami. It wasn't his fault that he got taken out.
It was K-Mags.
Yeah. But we all know he is not up to...
He hasn't cut it.
Yeah, he
hasn't cut it.
Standard. And it's not us saying he's a bad driver because you've got to have some pedigree to make F1. Yeah. We all know this.
Unless you're Nikita Mazepin.
I reckon if you took half the F2 grid and put them in an F1 car versus Logan Sargent would still probably finish in the top three. You thought I'd say he'd win it, wouldn't you?
No, I didn't think win it. I thought you were going to say like top 8.
I thought you were going to go the other way. I thought you were going to say I think you would still finish in the bottom 5.
No. Let's be honest. Like, you have to have some pedigree and some ability to make F1. But when you're up against some of the people you're up against, like, what can you do?
Well, it's true, and especially no more so than his teammate. If we go across to the other side of the garage, Alex Albon, new multi-year deal. I'd love to get your thoughts on that because that Mercedes and maybe even Aston Martin seat looked like it could have easily been his. Why do you think he's decided to sign a multi-year deal? Sounds like a 3-year deal at Williams. He truly believes that they can get on the podium for the new regs.
I'm not really too sure, because how he has been. I mean, this season he hasn't actually been doing that great compared to last season.
Hasn't scored a point yet.
But I mean, if you look at last season, the way he was outperforming that Williams, I was saying all year that he could easily get a move, a drive at a better team. And the fact that he's stayed at Williams kind of in a way feels like, you know what, I'm backing down from going to fight for my place anywhere. He knows he's comfortable at Williams. He's got the number one driver role in the team. And it's kind of like, I get that if you've got that, you might not want to go anywhere else, because you can kind of mould the team around you to what you like, and you can help drive them forward. But with the performances, especially that he had last season, he could easily get a drive at the likes of an Aston Martin, at the likes of, I mean, you could even see him go back to Visa Cash App. But being stuck at the back of the grid, I suppose it's one of those things of like, if you feel comfortable in a position, you don't really want to move, but he's probably deserving of better.
Yeah, I think especially when he had the pit stop that he had this weekend where they didn't fit the wheel on. I mean, fair play to him that he actually managed to get the car all the way back round, but it really ruined his race then, and he ended up retiring anyway. But I just think the first time actually I've heard that take, Ollie, and do you know what? I might actually agree with you on it, where you go, he sounds as though he's backing down. I wonder if maybe he's an elite athlete. I doubt this really does come into his mind, but after obviously what happened at Red Bull and the struggle he had there, I wonder if he is a little bit sceptical going back to a top team. But I just think it is a weird one. He obviously knows more than us and what goes on inside Williams. He truly believes that from the new regs onwards that they're going to be fighting for podiums. He said it in a press conference where he spoke to the team and said, I've renewed. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to work for James Vowles. I think he's a great guy to work for, but it is a strange one. He must know more. He must have gone for like Mercedes and realised and been told, no, it's going to this person, and therefore maybe this was his last resort. Maybe he's only signed this deal because he knows the others are now taken, just not for the public to know yet.
Do you think, like you said, Ben, about how he feels scared because of what happened at Red Bull, do you think he's looked at the Aston Martin and Mercedes seats and gone, all right, if I go to Aston Martin, I'm up against Fernando Alonso, where I'm going to be bullied, and if I go to Mercedes, I'm going to be against George Russell, who's going to obviously be preferred because he's got Toto's golden boy. So it could be the similar situation of how they looked at Max and him a little bit.
I do sometimes when I do sometimes think, like from a media point of view, sometimes it's very easy to come to those conclusions because they're like opinions to put out there that will, get a conversation flowing. I think from an athlete's point of view, it's probably very hard to ever envision a top athlete backing down from a challenge. I can't really envision Albon going, oh no, I don't want to go there because it'll be too hard. Like I don't think that would happen. Yeah. I think actually the more and more I think about it, I think he probably wanted one of the other seats and he's been told you're not going to get it, and therefore he's signed a lucrative deal at Williams that he knows is safety for him. And like this year, he might potentially go a whole season without a point, and he's still going to be their number one driver. So I think that might be the reason as to why.
If he goes a whole season without a point and so does Logan Sargent, then surely they look on paper and go, well, hold on a minute.
Well, mate, I don't even know if Sargent's going to get a whole season at this rate.
Well, that is the one thing I will say. If they go a whole season if both go a whole season without getting a point, which is unlikely because we know what Albon can do in that Williams. But if that happens, do they not then look at both of them and go, well, you perform the same, we're just going to keep you?
But it might not be
one for that. You have to get rid of the other.
Yeah, but it might not be that. It might be the amount of damage Logan's caused over the course of, like, financially, all the cars he smashed up. It might be qualifying, the fact that Albon literally beats him in qualifying every week. I think was it Miami or China? It was like the first time Sargent's ever out-qualified Albon ever since he's been in the sport. You can't. There is still that, I guess. But obviously, yeah, Sundays is the main day. Also, by the way, did you know that everyone was lapped up to P10? Yeah, so I think that might be the first time this year that lapping went into the points. I could have got that horribly wrong, so I do apologise if that's the case.
Wow.
Also, finally, in terms of just going through I want to talk about Alpine. Both drivers into Q2. What do you make of that?
They're on their way.
Progression.
Yeah, they're progressing.
They've changed from a standard everyday field tractor to a Lamborghini tractor.
George Russell was fastest lap, but that was because he had a free stop to basically go for it. But there was a question asked to Lewis Hamilton, I think. I can't remember if it was Rachel Brooks or if it was one member of the F1 channel. I can't remember, but basically said, "Are you okay with the fact that this is what you are now? You're basically a team that will just go for fastest lap rather than going for wins." And I actually thought to myself, I understand the question, but
that's a bold question to ask.
But point to point, at the end of the day, going for fastest lap, even if you were winning titles, was still a thing. You still. How many times has Max got fast lap this year? Anyway, still many times. Well, I don't think you should be falling into a category of they're only going for fastest lap point now, because it's should go for it anyway.
Think about in 2021, you had Lewis versus Max at the Dutch Grand Prix. Lewis literally pitted to go for the fastest lap.
This is the thing.
And got it. And that left him level on points going into the final race. So that's a bold question to ask, but I get it, but I don't at the same time, like you said.
There are currently 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 drivers without a point. That's Albon, Zhou, Gasly, Bottas, Sargent. Zhou, actually. How many times have I said now when you start having a talk about Guan Yu Zhou? I saw something that Bottas has out-qualified him in qualifying at the last however many 7 or more. I'm starting to think we need to start having a bit of a conversation about Zhou, because he never seems to really be wowing me.
But the thing is, though, as well, if we know Hulkenberg's going to kick Sauber next year, and then now you're saying that Bottas could be going to Williams. Do we think they clear out both drivers, or do we think they
hope so.
They should clear out both drivers, but then who do you bring in?
Tao Porsche. Sauber Academy driver. Won the F2 championship last year. Don't get me wrong.
In IndyCar.
He's not been doing great in any of the series that he's been driving in, but F2 champion, and he was good for the 2 or 3 years he was fighting in that championship. He was phenomenal.
It's just
I would hope that they do, because obviously you two know how much I was raving about him last year. Yeah. But whether that happens, I don't know. But I think that might be a little bit of a good segue for me to talk about something that happened last night. Or was it Saturday night? Might have been last night. I think it was last night.
Going?
Well, you talked about Tao Porsche getting a full-time seat in IndyCar.
Oh, and yeah, okay.
And it is the Indy 500, obviously part of the Triple Crown.
So excited for this. I'm actually going to order myself a Domino's pizza.
I'm sorry, but they had 6 practice sessions, which I think are all 6 hours long or something like that. And
but can you explain this session that they do the week before?
As in what, the qualifying, or?
Yeah.
So basically they have the normal roster of drivers. So it'd be like F1 having the normal 20 drivers, and they have I think it's 5 or 6 additional drivers on the sidelines who could potentially go into the weekend for the qualifying and then getting a seat in the Indy 500. So it'd essentially be like going to Monaco, because it's part of the Triple Crown. It's going to Monaco, having the 20 drivers that are obviously still there, and then adding 5 drivers from Formula 2 to that.
Or all the test drivers.
Yeah.
The third ones.
Yeah. Adding all the test drivers in. And then if the ones that usually have a spot don't qualify, then they're just out. They don't get to race the Indy 500. And the biggest thing of this that I've just read up on, and unfortunately I was at work last night, so I didn't get to watch all of it. But the biggest thing of that is former Indy 500 winner Marcus Ericsson didn't get a qualifying time in. And the way that it's not
into the wall.
It's not Will, it's go on, Ollie, you say.
It's not based off of time, it's based off of speed. They have 4 laps to set an average speed. around the Indianapolis.
And I think the top speed was something like 233.88, and it was set by like a rookie.
No, it wasn't. It was the top 6 was Scott McLaughlin, who set an average speed over 4 laps of 234.22 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Average over 4 laps.
Did you see the one where I can't remember her name? It was a female driver, and she like gave the wall like a love tap, and she still managed to carry on. Did you see that?
No, and the tire, her at the wall of the tire was literally completely shaved, but she still managed to get through really well. Also, so the top 12.
Who was the guy? Who was the guy in the green car that like proper spun out, and then he hit the you know as you're coming into the pit lane, what's the thing called that like separates? So like the thing that kind of sticks out to separate.
The
divider. Yeah, some guy just went straight into that.
I think that was Ericsson.
Was it?
It might have been Ericsson, yeah. But so I got that wrong. So that was a Firestone Fast 6. But overall,
Firestone, that's so cool.
So they go into the top 12 and they go into a top 6. So the top 12, McLaughlin's speed was actually quicker. McLaughlin's speed in the top 12 was 233. Oh no, it wasn't. No, I'm lying. I thought it said 234.
I was going to say, one was 4, one with 3.
Something like 233.88 or something.
Yeah, so he's in the top 12, it was 233.492. Like, how do you average 230 odd miles an hour?
Across 4 laps?
Yeah.
And what they do, Will, is they put you out one at a time. So, like, you're not all, it's not like our qualify. It's not qualifying where obviously you're all out and impeding. You just go out 4 laps on your own.
There's no, like, you can't get in a drag either. You can't get a...
No. Unbelievable. Some of the, when it's like, it reminds me of cycling, like the velodrome. When you go, like, up, I saw a guy actually do a video for IndyCar social channels where he walks up the track, and he's, like, having to use his hands to, like, crawl up. It's so steep. It's unbelievable.
You don't realise
and you've just got cars going. It's like, it literally is cars.
But yeah, it is. Anyone that is listening,
no, because that's NASCAR. That's the equivalent of NASCAR cars.
Oh yeah, true.
Not IndyCar.
Indy 500's turbo. You know the little wheel?
Yeah. Francesco is obviously an F1 car. Great. He's not an IndyCar. Yeah, I'm not having that.
Brunoni or whatever his name is.
Mate, did you collect them all as a kid? I've still got them all in the loft somewhere at home.
I think I probably must do.
I did as well. You get to a certain age, Ben, where you have to sell them.
No. Do you not know what I used to do? I used to get them all out and race them round the living room. My dad would film it on the iPad, and then he'd connect a HDMI cable, and I'd watch it back on the TV as though it was an F1 race. I did it last week. No, I'm joking. I did it. No, but I used to do it as a kid, and obviously McQueen would win every week. He was the Verstappen of our times. Chick hit with DNF on the first lap.
Right, quickly, I mean, before we get on to... So that was in 500. I mean, if you haven't watched it before, watch it next weekend. It'll be phenomenal. But quickly, one last thing I want to say before we get on to Ben's favourite part of this episode is to congratulate Harry Benjamin. Obviously, Crofty wasn't on commentary this weekend, but he was brilliant. He was really, really good. I was kind of expecting Alex Gray to do it from F2. But no, Harry Benjamin, congratulations to him. He'd done an absolutely phenomenal job.
He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And I think as well, also another shout out to Karun, because I think Karun matched him really, really well. I know that I follow them both on social media, and I know that before they went out to Imola in the week, they actually met up at Sky Studio, and they were practicing together. They were doing like practice sessions of trying to complement one another. So fair play. I think it was really, really good. I loved it. And I know as well, I was reading a lot of comments. A lot of people were tuning in because Crofty wasn't on, which I found very interesting. I still love Crofty. I think he's great.
That is weird, though.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Ollie, because, he was great. Last thing I was going to mention on like F1 side of things was just the difference of Haas drivers. Made me laugh. Kevin Magnussen said, I think he had to go and see the stewards, but for the Piastri thing, and he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, no, well, it's just nice to know they're still there."
I saw that.
Which I found funny. But Nico Hulkenberg, who obviously came P11, has not finished below that position since the opening race of the year. So he's not finished below P11 since the first race of the year, right? Magnussen's finish of 12th was his best result since he scored a point in Australia. Just look at the difference is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but over the course of their careers, Magnussen does actually have a podium.
And he has a pole. Oh, no, Hulkenberg has a pole, though, doesn't he?
Does he?
Nico Hulkenberg has a pole position. It was Brazil as well, wasn't it, for Williams?
I think you're right, actually. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Is it the BMW Williams, or was it a bit later on when Williams were in the dark blue?
Yeah, Williams. Yeah, pole. Yeah, 2010.
Yes.
So they both have a pole. Magnussen just had a podium, and that was obviously his first race for McLaren Australia.
Oh, Ben, that is clutch.
Where have you bought that out from?
I'm a stat man. I was born for the stats.
That is clutch.
Also born for the predictions.
Great segue.
Jingle, 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 jingle. So, and actually as well, one thing I will say about these predictions, thank God we could just go back to a normal weekend. I wasn't having to track sprint race and all this sprint qualifier. Oh, it's just, I love it. But for tracking predictions, I shot myself on the foot last week or 2 weeks ago. But we move on to predictions. And if you haven't seen the TikTok, then this will be news to you. Now, I will do my very best to present this correctly, impartially. I'll actually as well, I will give Ollie some massive credit because he was the only person to score points in qualifying. Me and Will scored nada, and it was actually Ollie who scored 2 with Verstappen P1 and Norris P2.
Oh yeah, because
Ollie scored 2 points. So after qualifying, Ollie was leading the predictions league from a point behind in third. It was me and Will were both on 21 and you were on 20. And then you jumped into the lead on 22. And I thought to myself, cool, we've got a game on our hands here. We really have. But then we're moving to the race weekend. Ollie got 3 points. So, he's gone one better. He's gone from qualifying to the race. He's done even better. And I think, do you know what? Fair play to you there. You've got Leclerc 3, Piastri 4, Sainz 5. So do you know what? Round of applause for Ollie there because that's superb. That is superb. And then obviously Will, 3 points. So, he's bounced back from nothing in quali. It's gone Verstappen 1, Norris 2, Leclerc 3. And that's absolutely fantastic. You should be really, really proud of yourself. Well done, guys.
Shut up.
There is only one winner this week. And with the first, he's put stars on it and all. With the first full 5 and double points to Mr. Benjamin Parker. Woo! So, 10 points. 10. How do you say 10 in Spanish? How do you say 10 in French? How do you say 10 in Italian? Because that is what I've achieved. So, if we look at the league table, in third place, with 24, is Mr. William Smith. In second, with 25. So he's jumped up. He's gone from third to second. We love an improvement. Is Ollie King with 25. But there could only be one guy in the lead with pole position. And they doubted him. They doubted his ability to count last week. They doubted his ability to add up properly. But with 31 points, Ben Parker might drop.
To be fair, that's not that bad. That gap is still...
No, do you know what? I agree. Because believe it or not, all jokes aside, I did think to myself, this 10-point rule we've put in, could it actually be a little bit silly because it means just one guy will win it? But it's only 6 points from Ollie.
The crazy thing is, like that video you made, there was a possibility that each one of us could have got that. Because I had Sainz and Piastri switch.
Shout out to us, by the way.
Norris and Verstappen.
Yeah.
How you had it. And especially...
Shout out to us because those are genuinely really good predictions. Like, and especially as well when we do our predictions basically straight after an event. We'd all done our predictions before we even knew Piastri had got a penalty.
Yeah.
So I think
we do them after FP2. We do them Friday night, realistically, and then we wait for quali, and then we do the quali predictions Friday night, the quali predictions we were shocking.
They were bad this week. But also as well, like, well, yeah, not Ollie, but the thing is, I've got a double pointer. I've got the
P5. What are you smoking?
No. Hold on. Do you want to know my thinking behind that? We all know when it's a track that's been on the calendar for multiple times, Alonso does well because of his experience. I was thinking, Imola, it'll cook. It has been there ages. And then he puts it in the gravel. What am I supposed to... I saw him go into the gravel and then give up. I was like, oh, brilliant, cool, cheers, mate. Sack that off then. Useless.
Thing is, right, obviously, first double pointer in trackside history, may I add. But I scored nothing in qualifying. So 10 points is a lot of points. 10 points is a lot of points, and it's the most points ever in one weekend. But if I could have had 12, I could have had 13.
If someone does a clean sweep, like 5 and 5 in quali and the race,
then it's over.
Or if someone does a clean sweep in sprint quali, and race,
oh my god.
Then I think they deserve a reward, because that would be mad. If anyone does, buy yourself a lottery ticket, because Jesus Christ, that'd be impressive.
But no, I think it's good. Like this probably been the best bit that we've introduced to the podcast this year, because watching it, I was thinking, I was looking at the top 5 and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've got close to that. And then I looked and I'm like, Ben's actually got that. And then I looked again, I was like, if people move, Will's actually got that.
It cures my gambling.
Genuinely, it was good as well, because obviously what was a pretty boring race. Of course, the ending was interesting anyway, but it gave it that little bit extra for me anyway to be able to go, hold on, Max, which is probably the first time I've ever said that, by the way. But
I've just got to quickly say as well, was my prediction of Lando winning the first time that any of us have predicted anyone but Max to win?
No.
I
put Sainz to win in Australia.
Yeah.
I put
Sainz Ollie, it hasn't always been Max. But I remember when yours came through, because Ollie, when yours came through, I put Max Lando, and I went back and was like, oh no, hang on a minute, he's gone the other way. And I thought, does he actually mean that? And then it turns out, obviously, he did, and nearly correct.
No, genuinely, if there was 5 more laps, I think I could have got 10.
Yeah, no, you are right. To be fair, I don't even think 5, 2. 7/10, 2 laps, I think it was Lando's.
But if Ollie had got that 10, that would have put him on 30. No, it would have put him on what?
Well, he's on 25, but it's because he got 3 points in the race. So he would have actually have got. He'd be on
20. He'd be on 32.
32. Yeah.
Wow.
But I'm on 31. Ollie's on 25. You're on 24.
So it's still.
So obviously you back markers. Alpine, try and find your way back up.
If one of us gets a clean sweep in Monaco, either me or Will, then it's right back on.
I'm not being funny. About Monaco. Me and Will obviously had a bad quali there, and you 2 points there. All it takes is for someone to get 2 points in quali and like 3 points in a race. That's 5 points. We only get 1 across, and all of a sudden, 6 points actually isn't that much.
The bad thing is with Monaco, you base your race predictions off of quali. So I'm very sure that we're all roughly going to have the same top 5, maybe in slightly different orders.
This is the thing. Also as well, right? And listen, we'll have a joke and a laugh, but I am being serious when I say this. I always, and look, there isn't any proof, so you can choose not to believe me, but I know that's what I do. I always put my predictions in before I ask for yours. So when we have something similar, I am always like, oh. But especially now, it'll be quite funny because you're just going to be on my case going, you're just matching us so we can't catch up.
No, I know you wouldn't, because there was not a chance you would have had the same thought process as me about Alonso.
Yeah,
because it has been proven over time, over this season as well. How many times have we seen that when a track is on the calendar for multiple times, like multiple seasons, Alonso does well?
Yeah.
Just for some reason this week he decided, nah, can't be bothered, boys.
Well, where did I put Hamilton in fourth for? Was it China weekend? And you were like, Ben, why have you done that? But then I still got the top three.
Yeah.
Monaco, Monaco. That might be something crazy though. Maybe it might be. Obviously, qualifying.
We need what happened last year with the rain. What happened last year with the rain was incredible.
Exactly. But mind you, actually, wasn't it supposed to rain in Imola? And it did, like, on the Thursday, and then it never did over the rest of the weekend.
It always rains in Imola.
Yeah,
it's
but it didn't.
Not raining.
Yeah, but then it didn't.
It's like whenever we go to Spa.
The actual race weekend.
It's like whenever we go to Spa, like Spa will be lovely the entire year. Like they've done the WEC there like a month ago. Beautiful weather. Whenever F1 goes there, absolute cats and dogs.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
I know, ridiculous. But I just think now Monaco, it obviously gets its stick for a Sunday's purpose, but I love Saturday Monaco. I just think it's amazing and just
I love Monaco in general.
Yeah, I cannot wait for it, and I think maybe there could be turn one carnage. The thing is, if you go, 1
These
and 2,
cars are wide. These cars are wide.
You go 1 and 2, and they're out. All of a sudden,
tell you where there will be turn one chaos. Formula 3 or Formula 2. Formula 3, you've got 30 cars going into turn 1.
Yeah,
cars going into sand and hot. That does not that does not math.
There's going to be some heroics. There's going to be some serious heroics into sand and hot.
You ever seen the swimming pool chicane video of like all the cars of like Lewis throughout the years going through the swimming pool chicane? It's like that 08 car was just like 07, 08.
It's tiny.
It is, but it just bounces from like it's like the old YouTube series of Toons. Like it just bounces, like the wheels just bounce, like the super softs and stuff, like the purple tyre. And the pink tyres.
I cannot wait to see some serious.
I'm excited.
I think one last question before we end this episode. Realistically, with the cars getting bigger and bigger and bigger, how long do you reckon Monaco has left? Because the circuit already looks too small for the cars that we've got now.
Yeah.
And they're only getting bigger year upon year. How long do you think it has left?
I don't think it will ever be something that goes because of its history, like with Silverstone, how it was nearly going, and then obviously, thankfully, it was kept. And obviously, we talk about like the Triple Crown. There's no such thing as a Triple Crown anymore. I think they will keep it. I just think it will be a case of they keep expanding races. So we were up to 24 already, which is the most. It might be we really want to add this race. I know they want to do New York or Chicago or London or something. So it's like, so let's just make it 25, 26 rather than taking something out. Like, did you see my video the other day of that TikTok filter? And because the track looked like it was in the air, I was like, oh, I'm just testing out the new Qiddiya like Saudi circuit. It would just be like they keep adding until they get to like 30 and then they'll cap it or something. Something stupid like that.
I don't think it'll ever be taken off, but I feel like it'll have its stick for not actually being entertaining. That's what it is, because everyone knows it. Like everyone knows the Sunday is the bit that everyone looks forward to, but the most important part about Monaco is the Saturday. Everyone knows that. Everyone who knows Formula 1 will tell you.
How many times are they going to say that across the next weekend?
A few.
We all know the Saturday.
38.
This is word for word. Everyone knows the race is on Sunday, but the real ones know the most important part is the quali on Saturday. Yeah. That'll be it, word for word.
As long as we don't get a Lance Stroll camera moment again, like where the original meme came from. I'm pretty sure it was Monaco, wasn't it? The very first Lance Stroll.
As well. That happened this weekend so many times.
Oh, there was a
battle going on there. Just cut to, I think it was Stroll and Gasly or something like that towards the end of the
who was like having the really close battle at the back? Was it Joe and Magnussen?
Sargent, wasn't it?
I don't think it was Sargent. No, I think it was like
it might have been
Magnussen and someone.
Yeah, it was good, and it just makes you. And when I saw it, I actually thought to myself, makes you think the amount of these moves that probably actually do happen that we never actually see.
Mm.
But there you go. That's Imola for you.
Yeah, well, it was not a very interesting race until the final 5 laps. The McLarens look quick, but Max is back to winning. But that's all we have on Imola. So, Will and Ben, thank you for joining me once again. And we'll be back next week, not 2 weeks' time, next week, for a recap of Monaco. Thank you for listening, and see you then.